relationship with my daughter was perfect. I adored her, and she me. And her last words to me were, she said, "I love you, Daddy." And you know, I always have that. And you know, so many times when I visit families where the child has been murdered, and so many times I've heard them say, "If only I told her."
Actress Dominique Dunne, star of the current film Poltergeist, died today in a Los Angeles hospital. She had been in a coma since she allegedly was strangled by her former boyfriend Saturday.
Now, believe it or not, it's been almost 2 years since we've been back here in Simi Valley visiting the Freeling house from the movie Poltergeist. Probably one of the most famous homes in horror movie history. It's so wild that it's practically in our own backyard. But this is it. Now, it's a very windy day here in Simi Valley. But today we're going to be doing a video that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, and that's to tell the story of the death of actress Dominique Dunne, the oldest daughter of the Freeling family. Now, if you're familiar with the movie Poltergeist, then you know about the Poltergeist curse. The curse that supposedly has to do with the movie, because a lot of people that were involved with the movie actually died very tragic deaths. Now, Dominique Dunne, she died November 4th, 1982 at the age of 22 years old after being in a coma because her boyfriend at the time, well, her ex-boyfriend, strangled her at her house in West Hollywood. It's a very sad story, very messed up. And today, we're going to tell it.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
Now, in order to properly tell the story of Dominique Dunne, we have to travel all the way back to 1981 here in West Hollywood, right off of Melrose Avenue, to a restaurant, a very popular restaurant at the time called Ma Maison. It was the place to be. It didn't look that fancy, but it prided itself on how secluded everything was. People like Orson Welles would come there every single day and eat. In fact, Orson Welles would sit in the very back booth by the restrooms because it was very secluded. The phone number for this place wasn't even listed. Rolls Royces were always parked out front. It was the place to be. The restaurant Ma Maison is no longer here. Instead, there's a new building in its place with some storefronts, but the address was 8368 Melrose Avenue here in West Hollywood. Now, on a side note, a little bit of a lighter note, this is also where Wolfgang Puck got his start at this restaurant. But we're here because there was a man by the name of John Sweeney who was the sous chef here. Now, Dominique Dunne met John Sweeney back in 1981 at a house party. And like I said, at the time, John Sweeney was employed here at Ma Maison. Now, after a couple weeks of dating, they moved into a one-bedroom house in West Hollywood. And they lived there for about a year. And they had a lot of major problems. Basically, John Sweeney very quickly became overly possessive and started mentally and physically abusing Dominique.
In 1982, I had 3 kids. I had 2 boys, and I had a daughter called Dominique. And Dominique was, you know, my only daughter. I worshipped her. And she became an actress, and almost instantly, I mean, Steven Spielberg cast her in Poltergeist. And there was a restaurant called Ma Maison, a big famous Hollywood restaurant. And the chef there, they had a romance. And he stalked her. She became frightened. She never told us he was abusive to her, and he killed her. He killed her, and it was something that just changed the lives of all of us in my family, my wife, my 2 boys, me.
Did you know the guy before this happened? Had you met him?
Oh, yeah, met him, and none of us liked him. And, you know, he thought it was because it was a class thing, that he was the whatever, and he thought we were this. And, but that wasn't why. It was, there was something creepy about this guy. But women liked him.
Did you try talking to Dominique about it?
Well, no, we didn't know that he was abusive, you see, until it was too late. And
how did her death change your career path?
Well, it changed everything. Just not my career path. It was just everything in my life changed. I mean, you know, things that had been important to me once weren't important to me anymore. Things that, just everything changes. Everything, you know, when you're, it's just such a jarring thing to your. We all got, I was divorced, and my wife and I were closer than we were at the most intimate part of our marriage.
Now, after the death of Dominique Dunne, the restaurant Ma Maison took a major turn for the worst and closed in 1985, mainly because John Sweeney was at one time employed there. Now, all the big celebrities and how popular it was, a lot of people were kind of afraid to come here, afraid to be associated with the restaurant that employed the killer. They had no legal ties. They weren't supporting John Sweeney in any way, shape, or form. But just because they were associated with him, people started to stay away. In 1985, it closed. Now, pretty much the entire time Dominique Dunne and John Sweeney were together, he was abusing her, whether it was mentally or physically. There's a lot of different information online that talk about this, including one time when Dominique was able to get away from him and showed up at her mother's house, and she was missing patches of hair because they got into a fight, and he grabbed her by the hair, and it was, it got pretty nasty. October 30th, 1982. Dominique Dunne and John Sweeney are officially split up at this point. He's moved out, she's changed all the locks, she's inside the house, and she's going over lines. She's rehearsing for a part with one of her coworkers from a TV show that she was going to be in, a TV show called V. Do you guys remember that?
Tonight on the NBC Sunday Movie, prepare for V, the most extraordinary miniseries ever made. A daring TV journalist struggling to uncover the startling truth behind the aliens' visit to Earth. And a beautiful and brave young scientist fighting for the very survival of the human race. Together, they take you on a fantastic journey to meet the visitors.
They were rehearsing inside there, and supposedly Dominique Dunne was on the phone with one of her friends, and the operator cut in and said, "Hey, there's somebody named John Sweeney who desperately needs to talk to you." So she got off the phone with her friend, got on the phone with John Sweeney. About 10 minutes later, John Sweeney shows up at the house. Dominique Dunne comes to the front door. They talk through a locked door. And at some point, for some reason, she opens the door and she goes outside to talk with John Sweeney on the front porch. Her friend is still on the inside, and he starts hearing this conversation, and he hears them starting to fight. And eventually, he hears what sounds like scuffling and thuds, and it just doesn't sound right. So he calls the police and to report what's going on. And the police officer, whoever it was on the line, said, "It's out of my jurisdiction, I can't help you." So he hangs up, he calls his best friend, and he says, "Hey, listen, something's happening here. If I end up dead, John Sweeney did it." Hangs up the phone, and from everything I've read online, he exits out of the house through the back door, comes over to the driveway, and he finds John Sweeney over top of Dominique Dunne. Turns out, during the fight, for some reason, nobody really knows because nobody was out there on the porch with them, he started choking her with the intent of killing her. She didn't die right there. She ended up in a coma for 5 days and died November 4th, I think it was, 1982, whenever her parents, her family, pulled her off life support. Now, in court, during the trial, John Sweeney said that he didn't mean to kill her and then he blacked out. And what really sucks is he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He only served about 3. Got out. He's free today, living here in California. But 3 years for killing Dominique Dunne. Behind that gate is where Dominique Dunne was strangled by John Sweeney. Now, I read online a couple different accounts that whenever her co-star from V came out at the back door and saw John Sweeney over top of Dominique Dunne, it was right in the middle of the driveway. Other accounts say that it was more off to the left into the bushes, almost leading into the next door neighbor. Pretty wild, right? Now, if I come over here, there's the front porch where the fight started. It blows my mind. Now, of course, naturally, I have some questions. I guess the biggest one would be whenever David Packer, her co-star from the TV show V, I don't think I said his name before, but it was David Packer. When he called the police when he heard the commotion, the police told him that it's out of their jurisdiction. How is that even possible? I mean, at the time, things were different. Now we have 911, so whenever you make a phone call, the phone call is routed to the proper people. But back then, it's crazy to think about. Still, no matter who had jurisdiction, if the police would have just shown up, perhaps Dominique Dunne would still be alive today. Who knows what she would have done? Now, here's another small piece of information when it comes to telling the story of Dominique Dunne and what happened to her. Poltergeist was her first big acting role, first feature film. Up until this point, she was in a bunch of smaller TV roles, including a very small reoccurring role. Like I said, she was cast in the miniseries V, but not too long after her death, an episode she did for Hill Street Blues aired on TV. And in this episode, Dominique Dunne has bruises around her neck and on her face. That wasn't makeup. That was actually from an altercation she had when John Sweeney beat her up.
Don't you want to feed your baby?
No.
You sure are some tough piece of work.
Do you ever have a kid?
What difference does it make?
You never had some baby keep crying on you when you did everything you were supposed to.
So you left him out in the street?
I put him in a cop car.
It's stories like this that completely baffle me. I can't even imagine a world where this would happen to a family member of mine or somebody I loved. Now, I don't know the proper way of going about saying something like this, but if by chance you are watching this video and you are in a relationship of any kind where you are getting or being mentally or physically abused, do whatever you can to get out, please. I know it's hard. It's hard. Now, there's one more thing that we need to do, and that's head over to Westwood Village Memorial Park to pay our respects to the final resting place of Dominique Dunne. Westwood Memorial Park, the little cemetery that's hidden from society behind buildings. I mean, unless you know it's here, unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to find it. Now, right about the center of your screen, right there, is the final resting place of actress Dominique Dunne. Not too far from the final resting place of her co-star from Poltergeist, Heather O'Rourke. She's back there, right about there. We're going to save that, her final resting place, for a different video. Betty Page is buried here, Marilyn Monroe, Hugh Hefner, Don Knotts. So many people in such a small cemetery. Now let's get a closer look. Dominique Dunne, beloved daughter and sister, 1959 to 1982. Loved by all in a single yellow rose. And with that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time telling the tragic story of actress Dominique Dunne. And as always, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.